Okay, so there's need to delink sex and pleasure from marriage. That's something to have in mind. And commodification of virginity. I guess whoever wrote this can, Amma, you were together, yeah? My question is on sex and infertility. For most women battling infertility, sex becomes a job based on doctor's recommendation. It's timed intercourse, so at some point it stops being enjoyable. Is there any advice you have on this? Because it affects a lot of women battling infertility because of one reason or another. And finally, how do I snap back to enjoying sex after giving birth? My baby is 2 years. So those are things we'll discuss. Don't feel that your questions were... And if you have more questions, we'll discuss. Sawa. All right, welcome to the second panel session. On stage, I have Sylvia. I love someone introduced themselves earlier and their names, Nafula Wafula, right? So now we have Sylvia Atieno Otieno. I love it. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening. And then we have Jacqueline Achieng Okeo. We have Faith Fao, and we have Wairimo Karuri on stage. Well, they didn't sit in that order of the notes I wrote, which we should have discussed, but it's okay. We're here now, and I'll allow you each to introduce yourselves. The topic for this second session is sex, sexy, sexuality, sensuality, and intimacy. Haya. Sasa, we get into it. So let's clarify in terms of this conversation, and you can also clarify based on what you think. So we're talking about sex is the act. Do we agree? It can also be gender, but we're talking about sex, the act. The activity. Sexy is the feeling. Do we agree or disagree? It's how you feel about yourself. You know, are you feeling sexy today? Sexuality is about your orientation, right? That you identify as one or the other, right? I can see Beverly nodding, so it's very important because you're like a dictionary. You're like, yeah, you're okay.
Sex is also the act, even with oneself, not only.
Ah, nice. Okay, just in case you didn't hear, so sex, the act with yourself, other people, online, offline, per kitchen, various. Sensuality is the experience. So there's an aspect of sex where it involves someone wants to be talked to dirty, some people want to watch erotica. So when you use your senses, that's what we're going to discuss. Intimacy is the connection. And not necessarily sexually. I liked what Wairimo said in her video on UnMothering. It can even be intimacy with your child or intimacy with, how do you connect with people is intimacy, yet we use it predominantly to discuss sex, and that's not... And finally, we'll talk about sexual rights, the future. So, all right. In no particular order, depending on how you feel, whatever jumped at you, we'll start with you, Faith. Introduce yourself and then tell us what jumped at you about that, and also based on your lived experiences and what you do.
Thank you. My name is Faith Fao. Fao is an abbreviation. Faith Akinyi Upio. I use Fao. Professionally, I'm a national coordinator for Generation Equality Forum, working for AMREF, seconded to State Department for Gender, so I work a lot with national and county government and UN bodies. What else? I'm a feminist, no buts, we can only add. And I'm a Pan-Africanist, and I love being a woman. Introduction, or I just
jumped at me? Yeah.
I think it was also alluded for in the morning, and getting to see these topics is that I will be at a space where I'm going to learn and I'm going to get people who we share the same platform or rather ideas with. And the reason why I'm saying this is I thought I was the only person who probably was not feeling like sex the act, but I've come to realize that I'm not alone. There are probably people who also share the same sentiment. So when that came to my mind, it was going to be a safe space where I was going to learn and unlearn and even build myself in terms of all these related topics. And I'm looking forward to jump into it.
Okay, fantastic. Karibu. Jay? Jacqueline?
Good afternoon.
Jackie?
My official name is Jacqueline Okeo. I work at a public university. I'm a lecturer. I'm a feminist. But I go with the definition of a radical feminist. I have nothing against the other definitions, but for me, things that jump out so much, and it was mentioned in the first panel that things surrounding patriarchy, and I agreed with her, we should call it out for what it is. It is not about fighting men, it is making men aware of the things we are fighting for, or the things we want as women will not take anything away from them. Yeah, so that is why I stand so much on that radical feminist. I'm not embarrassed or ashamed to declare that. Also, I'm here in the capacity of being a woman who has lost a partner. I lost my partner very early in marriage. We shall talk about that more. What else? Oh, the thing that jumped out so much in this introduction, because we were having exchanges with her also, and last year I was reading a book called Decolonization of the Decolonization and Afrofeminism, something like that. That book was a heavy book. I would recommend all of us to read it because it focuses on African women. And then in the middle of reading that, I came across this book, The Sexual Lives of African Women. And what I came to realize after reading those two books is that, for us women, I think from the time we are aware, or from the time we are little girls, we are always defined by our sexuality. You're told your nunu is a shameful part. Your breasts are growing, now every time it's just something shameful about us. We are defined by something shameful about our bodies. Yeah, and I'm here to remind us to let's proclaim our sexuality and embrace it, because at every stage of our lives, we define ourselves. Sex has to be involved, some form of sex, sensuality, sexual orientation, whatever. It defines every stage of our lives as women. Yeah.
Someone said on Twitter, The Sex Life of African Women is officially the 2022 set book. Yes. So you have to read it because there might be an exam. And I've read it myself. And actually the exam, I thought it would be a quick book. I thought it was like some quick stories. As you read each story, you stop. You're like, oh, I didn't know that, or I knew that, but did I know that about me, and so on and so forth. So it's definitely a book you have to read. I would say, I told a friend, it has a lot of triggers that you might not be ready for, so read it with caution. But it's a set book, so kila mtu hapa has to read it. That is now to become the ticket to the next event.
One story per day.
Yeah.
Don't go more than.
Yes, Werimo? Karibu? I guess, yeah. Should be.
Hello, everybody. For me, I actually got stuck at story number 1, like maybe a month ago, but I'll continue. My name is Wairimo Karuri, and I am a mother to a lovely girl who is here with us. I tell people that I had one maternal bone, and I spent it on her. So for me, multiple children was a no. And I'm grateful that I had the privilege to make that decision. A lot of women don't. I am a covert feminist in the sense that I believe in the power of femininity and feminine wiles. And so I'm y'all's Trojan horse. Yeah. So you won't find me declaring I'm a feminist, but I know what their weak points are and how to get our agenda passed without too much of a fuss. I'm also a professional dominatrix, i.e., BDSM, bondage, discipline, dominant submission, and sadism, masochism.
You shocked your own namesake. Your namesake almost fell off the chair.
I am also a separated woman. That has been interesting in this society, especially because I got married very late and my marriage didn't last very long. And the marriage didn't bear children. I am also a sex educator, especially in the alternative lifestyle space. There's a lot of misconceptions about even basic stuff like polyamory. You know?
Take us slowly.
Okay, I'll try.
You're making everyone blush.
And I also offer a personal shopper service for all things, all things, sex, fetish, and kink.
Sawa sawa. Should I give you time to breathe? Take it. Her number? Which one? All right. Last but not least is Sylvia. I'm so sorry that you are coming after that. But Sylvia, introduce yourself with no. It's okay. It's okay. We're all okay. Okay. Breathe. Aya sawa.
My name is Sylvia Atieno Otieno. I'm a very beautiful woman, queer woman. I am a mother to one very handsome boy. I am a queer feminist. I am a woman who loves sex and pleasure. I talk about it a lot. I embrace it a lot. I used to say it's too much, but now I've realized I just love pleasuring myself. I love being pleasured, and it's okay. I am a professional chef. I have a cloud kitchen that I run. I am a retired Christian. Yes, because I was raised deeply in religion and it oppressed me for so long. And I just decided that I really want to live unapologetically. I released any shackle that was holding me down. And I love it. What jumped at me, I think, with whatever we're about to discuss is basically what I said. I love sex and pleasure. I like talking about it, especially as a queer woman. I feel like we don't get spaces where we get to just openly express our love for sex and pleasure. We are already oppressed so much by the society. We're already seen as a sin and illegal. So getting spaces where you can freely just express who you are without shame, that doesn't happen a lot. So I enjoy talking about it. I get excited. I was blushing when she was, because I was like, BDSM, oh my God, someone is talking about it. So I just love all things pleasure. I mean, I'm a baby girl and I embrace it, and I feel like pleasure is very important when you're baby girling. Thank you.
And that sounded like someone preach. So let's start with sex, the act. I'm going to list a few things, and as the audience, you're welcome to also pitch in because some of this came from you. Sex for women without children or not wanting to have children, that's one type of sex, right? And I remember, is it Mikali, you said, let's make room for that. So we're going to see what we're going to say about that, because not all women, married or not, want to have children or more children. Women too just want to experience sex for purely pleasure, as Sylvia has said. Sex for conception that's not working out due to health issues. We had the comment on infertility, so that's a space for sex for women. Sex to conceive is also a topic. Some people are struggling to conceive, and what happens is they get a waiting womb because the child is not coming. That's another space. The question of why do some people view sex while a woman is pregnant as taboo? and you know, we don't talk about that enough. Yes. And then there's the conversation of partners who are turned off by their pregnant partners, and then partners who are overturned on, and maybe the wife or the partner is not ready, so that's another type of sex. I actually just want to list as many sex so that we see that we are as diverse as the types of sex we have. This is in relation to motherhood, sorry. Not all sex in the world, we won't finish. So some women are, we spoke about, Daktari said most women will be abused. The women who are hit on when they're pregnant and they're on the streets, that's another form of when you're pregnant and in relation to sex. And then there's sex during pregnancy and sex postpartum. The question, if you're a mom that has been asked, is who decides that at 6 weeks you're ready to have sex again? And why don't they check on us emotionally and mentally before they declare to, especially our partners, that, hey, sasa amezaa, she's ready to have sex. So it's our conversation. So pick any that strikes you based on your lived experience, or, you know, and the audience is welcome to pitch in as well. So let's talk about sex, the act in relation to being a mother. Feel free. Oh, first, can we get this mic checked?
So I'll quickly pick up two. One, okay, I think we'll just start with a definition. So I'll first define kink. So kink is sexually. Kink is considered a sexual practice that is not socially acceptable. A fetish is a sexual practice that has to do with something specific that is normally not sexual. So a fetish is a type of kink. An example of a fetish is a foot fetish. Feet are generally speaking not considered sexual, but there are people who get turned on by feet. So there is actually a pregnancy fetish. Yes, and there are men who are specifically turned on by pregnant women. One of my, I say, power couples personally, who are porn stars, among other things, are currently pregnant, and because she does screen sex work and she's also a dominatrix, some of her sessions have skyrocketed because she's currently pregnant. I'll also pick up the lack of desire, especially in partners. So from our majority Christian background, a lot of this country, especially the men, have a Madonna hoe complex. A Madonna hoe complex is basically women are either the Madonna who bore Jesus Christ, or they are hoes, Kina Mary Magdalene. So there is no in between in terms of perception. And so when you are expecting and you're carrying life, especially the life of their child, your partner, you are the Madonna. And because you're the Madonna, they cannot fathom having sexual desire or interaction with you because you are the Madonna. You're too pure for sex. And that actually happened to me postpartum, because also I parted from her dad when she was 8 months old. From the time that I had her, we didn't have sex, period. Like 8 months into the separation, yeah.
You were the Madonna to him.
I was a Madonna, like he couldn't bring himself at all.
But where's the room for, okay, on the same note, some women's libido shoots, skyrockets. I have a very good friend whose husband was abroad. She would take flights. She's like, guy, you have to sort me out. Her libido went up and some goes down. So where do we start to have this conversation of, yes, you see me as a Madonna, but I have needs and I'm pregnant. So where do we start to have that conversation?
Okay, I'll say two things. One, that was 23 years ago. I think there's a lot more space today. Two, I think we start with sex therapy. what I've discovered about a lot of people's sexual predilections or lack of them is that they stem from some sort of sexual trauma. I don't know whether you would agree. And people need to just sort of like dig a bit for themselves and maybe with their partners where this thing that they feel about a certain aspect of sex comes from. I think that would really help.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
And to add on what she says, I hope I'm audible. It begins with what was discussed in the first panel, sex education. But then the sex education, we assume that schools are supposed to teach us like everything. But the main work of the school is to disperse the information, to give you the knowledge, yeah? But then there's a lot that is left out on the wayside. School is so formal. There's no room because there's a lot to cover. There's no room to discuss the other emotional, other aspects, So how we are socialized about sex, like if you have male friends, they'll tell you their first time was with, most of them say, the ones who are confident saying it was with the house help. What does the house help know about sex, So they also don't know. They don't understand themselves, and then they don't understand how we act.
And we don't understand ourselves.
And also us, we don't understand ourselves because we were told our vaginas are evil. Me, I don't remember even in my teenhood sitting in front of, like, going like this in front of a mirror and looking at, because I was told it was evil. I never even used to touch it. I mean, those OB guys used to come and talk to us in school, and I was like, I'm not, because of that trauma, that stigma. So it starts from there. And then now when you come to marriage, all those traumas you've carried, you've gone into marriage. I've never been to marriage therapy, so I don't think they talk about sex, like, in detail.
You're talking about like premarital counseling?
Yeah.
There's like a topic.
Yeah.
This is like
I don't know how in depth they go into that because, it's so much a part of who we are, but we don't
talk about it.
We don't talk about it the way we are supposed to talk about it. Yeah? So I think that is the issue now when it comes to marriage. For me, when I was pregnant, my pregnancy was difficult. It was very bad. First, I was not even home. I was abroad, and I was by myself. And I used to be hit on a lot, And it was by younger guys. Like guys, I was 35 then. So guys in their late 20s used to hit on me. And I just used to look at myself in the mirror and I feel like I look horrible. Why do you get this vibe of trying to hit on me? And I used to feel disgusted, And I'm telling these people, I'm pregnant. Can't you see I'm pregnant? I mean, you're not even the father. It was just a bad episode for me. And when I came back home to give birth, and still, I didn't feel the urge. Nothing sexual. Even after I gave birth, now my son's father, he asked me for sex. I think 3 months, yeah, and me, I had an emergency CS. And I told the guy, listen, I'll just be straight with you. We are not going to have that sex until in my head I feel like we're going to have sex. For now, don't even ask me about sex, because I feel like, the way you've seen cars that have been hit, and then it's written off, and then they fix it, and then it looks like this on the road. That's how I used to feel after I gave birth. That's actually how I used to feel, and I felt like that for like 6 months until I had to go for exercises to make me feel like myself. So I was not there, and I told him, listen, I'll just be real with you. If you really have to have that sex, you go and cheat. I don't care, My mind, I'm not there. So just understand. But he was not understanding, you see. He was not getting it. Unfortunately, when I went back to school abroad, and then I did those postpartum exercises with some Chinese lady. That chick was so hard on me. But at least by the time we were done, I felt like myself. And now I became horny. Very horny. Okay, me, my libido is usually
Very high.
very horny. So I go back home and I tell him, okay, fine, let's have sex. Let's have sex. So we have a lot of sex until he cannot keep up. Yeah?
What did this Chinese doctor do?
No, it was just some, they call it some postpartum exercise.
Just
I don't know.
we'll discuss that at lunchtime because. But before you finish, I think you're speaking to this, and I want to address something that someone has written. Lack of, which you've answered as well, in a way. Lack of interest in sex after babies, where libido goes away completely after the child, where your body is not your own and has just become a milk center. What then? So as you speak, that you are speaking to someone who's in the audience.
Yeah, okay, for that, for me, sex, someone was explaining to me that my experience with sex is I have to see the person there, then I get attracted. But it's not like that, because my mind has to be there. I go into sex with my mind, not how attractive the guy is, or not on physical attraction. So probably what that person is feeling is like they still have not processed what has happened, the whole journey, Because first of all, you're pregnant, you go through the 9 months or whatever months, and then you have not processed that. You give birth in itself, and most of us as mothers, we don't acknowledge or talk about, but it's also trauma. Yeah, the process of giving birth, the labor, the whole thing, the people who are seeing your vagina, it's all, especially for first-time mom, yeah, it's traumatizing, and then the baby is there, and also you're processing that, because I think as we were kids, we assume that all kids will be like, they'll be perfect. They won't disturb you, they won't cry, they won't do those things, they won't come with all these conditions, the environment I'll be rich, things like that. But it really happens like that for us, for all of us. Yeah, even if you're financially stable, you still have your struggles, So you have not processed all that. And then also the pressures of the society, first you want to look, especially if you're this working ambitious lady, you want to show people, I have everything put together.
Before you go into that, because that's the next thing, I think, what I'm hearing from just that conversation and what Werimo also said is we're all coming in with a misconception of what sex is supposed to be to our partnerships, not just marriage. Any partnership, any relationship, you're already coming with misconceptions. And there's no conversation about what the other person wants. And then a child is born, and then now there are even further misconceptions. Is that what I'm getting? As you talk about resources, we were having a conversation online with Sylvia, and that's what we were coming to next. When you said that when you fix the car and it's still moving like this, so that means you are not feeling sexy. Yeah. You're not feeling like the way you usually do. But we were speaking about the snapback culture. You give birth and then the katami is tight, you're buying what are those things, the corsets and all that stuff. And it's about resources. So Sylvia, as we just segue to that, what are your, share the thoughts you were telling me about the whole snapback culture and why the Kim Kardashians and the Beyoncés of this world are really adding pressure to already what we are going through.
So I'll just start by saying social media.
As a full sentence.
Yes, I will just say social media, because outside here, there's so much competition on how you should look, especially while pregnant and after. Oh, huyo hakukaza. So me, I was raised at the coast. Hajakaza tumbo huyo. Amejiachilia, au mwanamke amezaa juzi, mwanamume wake hata mtaka. I'm so sorry for those who don't understand Swahili. But there is this thing that usually happens where they tie, I know it happens even traditionally, they tie your tummy after childbirth so that your stomach, it goes back. So me, my child is turning 9. My stomach has never gone back.
Were you tied though?
I didn't
didn't
bother.
tie?
I think I've been very rebellious since then. So my mom would try those things and I'm like, lakini yako pia haijarudi.
Guy,
Mbona unanisumbua?
you're
Mbona yako?
unmothering your mother.
And where is yours? We can look alike. So I've never bothered. And I think because I was very confident, I usually say this all the time. I say, mwenye atanipenda, the person who like me, itabidi amenipenda na hii kitambi.
Yeah.
So I've never just bothered. But now you come to social media, not everybody is as confident. Someone will say, oh, you gave birth, it's been 6 months. You look at your stomach, And then now this person goes and compares herself with people who they admire, kina Beyonce, kina Kim Kardashian. This one will give birth today. Kwanza hata mtoto alikuwa akuje next week, but because today is a national holiday, they will make sure they give birth that day. Resources. And then again, they have a fitness team booked several months before. Even the people who are helping you during delivery, very top notch. Here, we don't even have as good services as people have uko nje. So you're busy comparing yourself. You're trying to kill yourself. Your mind is not even settled. I've just given birth to a whole human being. Some people like me, I gave birth very young. I didn't have anybody to guide me. My parents were just looking at me like, what has this girl has embarrassed us. So I didn't have anybody to tell me, mommy, it's fine. I just had my big head. So me, I just did things the way I wanted to. But not everybody is hard-headed, or not everybody gives themselves grace. So you're trying so hard. I have to look good on social media. I have to look like my child is getting all the nutrients, and you don't even know what to do that time. You don't even know, am I breastfeeding too much? There's so much pressure on yourself, and then now there's pressure of the gaze. Society is looking at you. She hasn't gone back to shape. She's not eating, or she's not drinking lemon-flavored water and all those things. Like, there's so much pressure, and it's so unfair, because at the end of the day, I can imagine someone doing all these things to get back to shape, and you're so hungry, you want to eat that burger, but because Kim Kardashian didn't do it,
No.
you can't do it. You're following, there's some fitness thing that's been going around, Chloe 7 steps. Imagine I'm all for get your body in shape, but if you're doing it because you don't want to do it and you're not there, akimami jaza hiyo kitambi. When you're ready for the kitambi to fall, it'll fall.
Go.
Because me, when I got my child, I was only 17 years old, guys. I was a baby. And I was very skinny. I was very skinny. And when I was pregnant, I was now like a whole truck. I was so big. And I didn't like how I looked, but then I was telling myself, at least now I have a nyash. I have an ass. I didn't have it before. So, and I thought that now I would still maintain that baby fat after. It didn't. I just stayed with my kitambi. Now, like 4 years later is when I finally added weight. And that is when I felt like I was now ready to start losing weight for me.
Right.
Because I'm ready now. Not everybody is as privileged to be kichwangumu or confident the way I was. So I extend so much grace to people who are really struggling. I have friends who are young moms now. Me, nilianza safari mbele. So them, they're starting now and they're asking me, Sylvia, oh, I look like this, and I'm just usually like, do you feel like you're okay right now? Just take care of yourself and take care of your child. When you're ready,
Right.
Your mind will you will wake up that day. Nobody will even tell you. You will take a jumping rope, whatever is in your disposal,
And
And even when it comes to snapping back, because at times maybe that's what you want, don't struggle to overextend yourself to get things that are not easily accessible to you, that now you're stressing yourself, because it's even worse. Now you're stressed about your body, and you're stressed about, how am I getting money to get this gym membership? How am I getting money to buy that corset? Because good ones are not cheap.
They're not cheap.
How am I getting money to go on this diet, to drink that lemon water and have what? So I feel like we really need to extend grace on our bodies. First of all, thank that body for taking you through that 9 months and being like, I'm here, my baby is so beautiful and is here. Now when we are ready, we'll do whatever work we need to do. It may be adding weight or losing weight, you don't know.
You mentioned something about the community gaze, societal gaze. I want to ask, why are mothers considered community property? I feel more than any other, you don't hear a boy being, someone commented how, I think it was you, Jackie, Jay, sorry. I know you're from two different places. Someone commented that it reaches a point that how a mother dresses is at that your children can be like, Mom, you look, where are you going? Or your husband, or your mother-in-law, or even your mother. Why is it when you become a mother, you're suddenly now, where did we sign the contract that we are community property? What happened? And it might be the Madonna feeling that you spoke about, but let's talk about this ownership and how do we detach ourselves from that ownership? How do we take power back?
I think all eyes are now focused
sort
on
of. Yeah,
sort
sorry.
of.
Sort of.
And I think I wanted to be a little bit laid back on this topic because I'm an aspiring mother, and I won't want to speak on behalf of people who have experiences. I would want them to speak for themselves. So I'm just waiting for something there.
No, but you represent a lot of young mothers in
Yes,
the
I
work
do.
that you do.
Programming.
Do they go through the same? How do you tell them that they have agency, despite them being young mothers?
Yeah. Agency is a big one, and there's a lot of body autonomy and illusion around agency and women's body. And I think now that you're talking about lived experiences, I can speak on their behalf, and I can speak also on my behalf, not as a mother. But now when you talk about agency and body autonomy and you just owning your body, it also has a lot of aspects around who is really behind the agency. And for example, in my case, just like maybe majority of us, we are coming from a very heavy spiritual background. And myself, I also come from a very heavy spiritual background. And it is where the socialization was that, one, you should abstain until marriage, that's the way Dr. was saying. And number two, if you don't abstain, there's normally a consequence that is, there's a repercussion that comes with you not abstaining. I've been raised by a single mother in one of the slums in Nairobi, Kariobangi North. And my dad passed on kitambo. And what I saw with my mom, she was this leader in church, spiritual, and leading all these sheep. And what she used to say is that Jesus is my husband, I'm not getting married. So for 19 years, I never saw my mom with a partner. So that formed my socialization around body autonomy, because already she had said that there's somebody who owns your body, and this is Jesus, who should be Lord. And if you don't do it, Jesus has a way of punishing you. Wow. And even until past teenagehood, that is what I had believed. In fact, I normally tell this story that my first kiss when I was a teenager, I knew that I was pregnant. There's a way Jesus will punish you, make the sperms go to you as saliva. You know that cannot happen, but then there's a punishment that comes with it because you're spiritual.
Right.
And it even affected my earlier sexual life. Because I knew just when you're in the moment, you're having pleasure and you just want to hit it. And then you just feel this spiritual thing coming in, and settling in the room, and you're like, I'm watching you. And you jack out of it. Yeah. And it even affects how you relate. And the reason why I'm saying this is believing that there's somebody who owns your body, and somebody should be making a decision. And in this case, you're not seeing the person, because most of the time we base autonomy to patriarchy, but this is somebody owning it, and you're not seeing the person who is owning it. And I had to come from a state where I know nobody is watching me. I can achieve my intimacy without having this spiritual cloud and even affecting it to, my partner. Now coming to young mothers that have done programming and worked with. I'll base it with the rural young girls. A lot of these rural young girls, most of them, they're not mothers because they wanted to be a mother. That's the honest truth. Yeah. There's a decision that has been made for them and most of the time, it's normally incest, because they're not at a point where they can make decision or say, I'm in love now, let me do this. So it's normally incest, and incest comes with coercion, sex through coercion. So it's most of the time defilement. Yeah. But then something that is really sad is even during the birth, it's normally blamed on them. Why didn't you say no? Yet they don't know how to say no. At my age, I struggle sometimes with even, saying no because I want to feel it, but something just tells me you still have those thoughts, which means you haven't discovered yourself and even the power you have even as a woman. So you want to believe this teenager at this particular time is still being abused of not saying no, or now that the pregnancy has come, now you're being treated as a woman. When there is clinic, you attend the normal, adulthood clinic. There is no intervention for teen mothers until right now that programs are really coming up to seclude and segregate teenage motherhood, because as much as they are women, there are different interventions being done. So there's a lot of body autonomy. Some can be patriarchal, some can be these things that it's just illusion. You just don't know what is controlling your body, and you can't put a finger to it.
Okay. And that affects definitely how you feel about yourself. And
exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And it even narrows down to self-awareness. How aware are you about your body, about your feeling, about your sensuality, about your sexuality? Because for me, at some point, I had to look through the mirror, because at some point I believed what I feel has to come from somebody else. I had to look through a mirror and say, Fao, some days you're beautiful. Some days you're extremely beautiful, so that I don't give any room for, some negativity. But you have big eyes, but your lips are more fuller. So it's either you're beautiful or extremely
I love that.
beautiful.
I love that a lot. That deserves a clap, because is it Vagina Monologues? I think Vagina Monologues, the first chapter or one of the opening statements is get a mirror, look at your vagina. Is it? Yeah, because I think I was 24 when you spoke about that. And it's about understanding that pleasure comes from within. And that's not a communication we get at any point. As Maureen said, you masturbate 10 what? 10,000? 15 heads, yes. Thank you so much for that, Faith. Let's talk about, as we just go through, and we'll never exhaustively finish everything, so let's not feel that pressure. Let's talk about sexuality, the orientation, the type of people we're attracted to, how we express ourselves sexually. I read this statement, and it kind of fed into this conversation. We indoctrinate children into heterosexuality from day one. Through the media, we show them, the clothes we buy them, the toys we gift them. We are not afraid of them discussing sexuality, right? Because we're already discussing it with them. What we're afraid of is them not being straight. Sorry, it didn't come with, because those memes. Sometimes some memes are powerful, but it didn't come with a quote. I'll find the original quote on that. What are your thoughts on that? That we spend an entire time teaching our children the color to be a boy, the color to be a girl, and all these things. Yet we say we don't want to talk about sexuality, but we are communicating sexuality. And yet what we are truly afraid of is that they won't be straight. What do you think about that? I don't want to land on Sylvia, but I can see. But anyway, as you think about it, Sylvia, what are your thoughts?
I don't know, is it on?
It's on.
So I usually say I discovered my sexuality, and I have been growing and learning about who I am as a queer woman as I was raising my child. So
I think, first of all, Sylvia has a very beautiful video in UnMothering Season 1.
Yes.
You need to watch it, for sure. And so does Werimo. Do you have one? Kai? No, not yet. So these two, Jay needs one, a video. But just clarify that you birthed your son before you explored your sexuality. I think that's, yes, just clarify that.
It wasn't long before, it was just around the same time. Yeah. So everything I have been learning, I have been trying to use child-friendly words to teach him as well. So it's we've been working that journey together.
Give us an example.
So, and this is very interesting, because I was talking about it last night with some friends I had over. And so at times, my child is called Howie. At times you can be watching something and he sees, a feminine presenting man. And he says, "Oh, that one is gay, guys." that's a gay man. And I usually, so at times it's, because it could, the people say, oh, all tomboys are like queer, and it's not true.
It's not true.
But I like the fact that he knows this gay word. It's something that's like that exists, because I actively talk to him about it. I face resistance because I will teach him this, and then he'll go to coast with my parents over the holidays and they will cancel, and then he'll come and I'll quickly revise, and then he will go over the holidays and we have to do that back and forth, but I do not mind it. So he has seen me with my female partners, because when you get comfortable, now you bring them to your space, oh, this is my child. And one day, which was, I think 2 weeks ago, he was upstairs watching TV and he comes down and says, Mom, you're a lesbian? And then I say yes, and then he runs up, he says, oh, and then he runs back upstairs. So I quickly ran to see what was he watching. But then now he told me that in his class, the teacher just randomly mentioned something about gay and lesbian people. And she didn't explain it, because I had to go and find out what is this that you're telling our children. But I think for me, because I am a queer woman and I'm very loud about who I am, it's very important that I don't shadow myself from my child. It's very important that he understands that there are people like us who exist. And because outside there, if you leave them to learn from outside there are very nasty things that are being spread around about queer persons. Very violent things, misinformation. So I decided to do it. It's a learning curve for me because I don't know what words to use. At times I don't even have like those words. I don't know those big words, how to make them like small. But I think I have done a good job, because 95 of the people in my life are queer persons, and they represent in very different ways, masculine, feminine. And because I have actively taught him, even from like young, nobody can come to my house and you're like, why are you dressing like a boy and you're a girl? No, he'll just be like, do you want to see my new toy? Because these are very normal things for him. So outside there, he can. And someday, we were at the coast, we'd gone out somewhere, and someone asked, I was with my then partner, and someone asked him, oh, Howie, where's your dad? And he just turns and says, I don't have a dad, but my mom is there with a girlfriend. And he continued swimming, very casual. It's not a big deal for him, because I have been teaching him since he was young. So it's not, you're a lesbian. In fact, he can look at you like you don't know what that is, because I have been teaching him. And I've also I have a brother, and he's not homophobic, because I have been very vocal about this is the person that I am. I'm going to have people in my space. You cannot be misbehaving, because somehow you think, oh, it's bad for men to, So I think because I actively teach him, my worry has never been, oh, one day he'll be gay, he'll be what. So yesterday we were also laughing and we were like, oh, how you were saying, one day I'll have many children and I'll have a house, and Mom, you're going to be coming to my house. And then now my friend turns and says, you're going to have a wife. And he just keeps quiet. And in my head I was like, maybe he's thinking maybe he'll have a boyfriend. But I just giggled in my head. I didn't voice it. But I think if we introduce this in a young age, and even if you haven't introduced it yet, you can start now. There are so many resources there they teach you the words that you can use.
Right.
Because children are very innocent. They have so much love to give. They will not start saying, oh, gay is bad, unless you teach them.
You teach them.
Yes.
And that, I would like Werimo to, I don't know if it was Werimo or Jay who said, it's because we are not taught. And teaching does not necessarily mean that I'm teaching you to do that thing. It's teaching the correct words. Like, for example, earlier on you said nunu, and yet we are asked, please call it a penis, please call it a vagina, so that the child early on knows what it is. So if a stranger comes to defile them and says, oh, uses some other words, like no, does that answer or speak to what you were saying earlier, that we do not get education and that the school can't teach us everything? So the feeling is that the parents, as much as we don't like hearing this because we're hearing it from everywhere, we are the ones to educate, especially on sexuality?
Yeah, I think, well, I'll confidently say this. Listen, if you're a parent, you have to take some kind of authoritative role over your child. You have to be intentional with your parenting. Yeah? Yes, your child will mingle with the world out there, but don't let the world teach your child for you, because you're the one who's going to deal with the consequences of that. Yeah? So it's better you teach them, and then at least you know what to expect, you know? Like my child, he's 5. You know, I usually take him to school, and so when we were coming from school, we were just in traffic, like it was a slow-moving traffic, and my windows are not tinted. No, my son just stood like on the front seat, passenger seat, pulled out his pants, and he said, "Mommy, my dick is big." He's 5. So I just looked at this boy and I wondered, what really triggered this? You know? And I just imagine people are watching. But you see, it's part of the exploration. So I had to be careful how I reacted, because if I went overboard, he would think there's something wrong with him. So after he said that, I said, okay. And then I asked him, big compared to what? You know, I wanted to just get
Where it's coming from.
where he's coming from. And he just said, no, it's big. It's just big, you know. And this is not one incident. Another incident, sometimes I test him, you know, like we're watching Netflix, he's busy on his tablet. Probably I'm watching something and then
Intimate scene.
an intimate scene comes on. So there's the heterosexual and then there's the homosexual scene. And I just want to see how he'll react. And there's nothing, you know, like, but he's aware, you know, girls can like girls, boys can like boys, and girls can like boys, and like that, you know, because, you know, if you just subject them to one side, they might develop some sense of hate. You know, the way some of us, we don't like, we are homophobic, because when you hear homophobia, most people, when they hear homophobia, they just think it's about the sex. It's about the penetration. It's not, they don't think about the whole lifestyle of it, the whole life of that side. They only think about the penetration, and that really, that's what they dwell on. But, you know, it's good to be informed, and then you move from the misinformation to the even sometimes interact with homosexuals, and you'll see, you know, this person is just like me. We want the same things in life at the end of the day. And I came to realize the environment is so much against us, especially if you're a mother and you're doing parenting alone. You know, people see you like, first of all, how did you get here? Okay, fine. For me, my spouse died, but even up to last week, some of my colleagues, and we're just having a random argument on WhatsApp about union matters. And someone, because I'm asking questions, someone just comes from nowhere and calls me a prostitute. Because I'm a single mom. Yeah, I say, he just assumed I left my husband to sleep around. That's what he has. And I asked him, what has this got to do with what we are arguing about? You know? So when he went overboard, I told him, listen, you have a wife. Do you know the next day you can die and your wife will be called a prostitute? Yeah. And I told him, I don't feel bad because I'm a prostitute. I mean, I will own it. Yes, all of you know I'm a prostitute. I'm okay with it. Okay? So can we focus on what we are arguing? Sometimes even as women, we even, you know, I realize when someone insults you, own it. And then now, watashindwa, now what next? Because you own it. Me, I don't bother explaining to people, you know, my spouse died. Yes, I'm a single mom, yes. Call me whatever you want. Yes. I'm a prostitute, yes. I cheated, yes. I did all those. I will not defend myself. Anyway, so back to what we are discussing.
Just a very quick one.
Yeah.
What I'll say is I'll commend both of you, because I went through that journey say 15, 20 years ago. And the thing that I'll tell parents, especially of younger children, is answer the question that is asked.
Not the one you think they're asking.
Yes, and the one that you're answering in your head.
Yeah.
If you're asked, Mom, what is sex? Answer what sex is. If there's a trust ad on TV and they ask, what are condoms used for? Condoms are used for having sex. End of conversation. They will go, they will process, then they'll come back and ask, so if condoms are used for having sex, what is sex? But do not answer the question that has been asked. That's one.
Sometimes what I do, I really elaborate. I'll give them the answer, but I want to see when their eyes glaze over, when I've just passed the excessive information mark. So I'll be like, so sex, I'll explain, and then I just see, so I'm like, the question was answered, and we are not at the point I think we are. So I just tip over a bit, then you just see eyes glazing, attention gone. I'm like, that was the question they were asking. Yeah. While you have the mic, so that you can continue, and we'll move into sensuality also because of time, because you have the mic. I have a question here for you straight. The rest of you can't answer. I feel you can, but near Wairimo. Let's go into sensuality as you, Nini.
Okay.
Sensuality is the ability to experience all your senses. I'm going to go through class now because I've forgotten. Eyes, hearing, seeing, touching, tasting, smelling. And the sense of, there's another sense. I've forgotten which one. So it's described as experiencing all these senses. Tell us how BDSM can teach us about enjoying and enhancing our sexual styles. Actually, the way Jay has looked at you. Jay, you can't do that. You're like, you want a notebook. Anyway, tell us how BDSM can teach us to improve our sexual styles without necessarily taking up BDSM. And then 2, in kink and BDSM, this is a question from the audience, how do you ease your partner into your kinks? Like you want to try stuff, but your partner, or you think your partner will not understand or try. So I guess there's that barrier of what you're thinking, maybe they won't like it. But how do you ease them into your kinks? Yeah, as you answer them and then answer that.
Okay, let me answer the audience question first.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do a very quick run through. Barriers to kink are basically religious indoctrination, societal perception and norms, and your own personal hesitance. How to introduce kink to especially an existing partner is, today we have a lot of resources. You can go for sex therapy, though that's the maybe third one. You can probably send them a social media post, article, etc., and see their reaction to the content. And you can have an open, honest conversation, which I think is the best way. And I'm a bit radical. If they are not open, you just find another one. Anyway, I'm kidding. But my point is that if this thing is important enough to you, then it probably also means that there are many other places you probably don't rhyme. That can't be the only thing that is, out of sync. Sorry, first thing, sensuality.
I guess many people are curious about BDSM and not necessarily feel that they want to, at this point, be in BDSM. So the question is, what can we learn from BDSM and add it to our own sexual styles as we learn? Because, are you pulling up a... No. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, so that was the question. So that we talk about sensuality, how to improve the experience of sex.
One of the good things is that we are in 2022, because even 15 years ago, I remember having a conversation with a woman who was then slightly older than me. She should be about maybe 55 now. And for her, getting on top was a no-go zone in her marriage. Yes. So that is, yes. So that is how far society has progressed. Because I've been talking about sex with many people for many years, even before I went into sex education. So how we can incorporate sex, BDSM into our...
The sensual,
yes. One of the things, and I'll start from the mental, then we go into the physical, is I'll say things that help in exploring kink is open-mindedness, curiosity, do you want to find out how this feels? Confidence, do you believe that you can pull this off and you can work on your confidence? Trust, you need to trust the other person that they got you, because some of those things can be a bit outside. And being comfortable in your own body and in your own skin. So luckily, even without actively going into BDSM, we actually have kinks that have made it out of BDSM and into mainstream practice. So they are no longer quite kinky. They are kinky, but they are not quite kinky.
Sylvia has a question.
Yeah, I'm going to give you examples. So for example, sensory deprivation. Whether we are talking about blindfolding or whatever else, we have now reached the place where blindfolds and restraints are more mainstream. Whereas before, like I remember the first time I restrained somebody was in 1996.
Jesus.
And anyway, let's not go into that story.
Can we go into it at lunchtime? Yes. Because I think I was 15. Must have been in Form 2 or something.
Yeah, the another one is spanking. Whether with an open palm, I also say with normal household things like hairbrushes. In my BDSM practice, because I am Kenyan and we cook ugali,
Oh God.
I actually have muikos. Yes, like the normal muiko. Yeah. Yes. I'm Kenyan. And we should not just be known for running.
So basically, guys, that was but basically then you're answering the question that there are ways to add to sensuality, that sex is just not about penetration. There are ways that we can learn to be sensual.
Yes, but I'll get to that in just 1 second, because I first want to, because the question was how do you bring it in without going there?
Yeah, okay.
Another one is, I said restraints. Another one is choking. I really, really discourage choking. There are all these 27-year-old boys running around choking people. Choking is dangerous. That's all I can say. Even some of the most experienced professional BDSM practitioners, some of them don't even practice choking, because you have to have a very good understanding of the human anatomy to know where to put the pressure, even for impact play. Even for impact play, and that is why I said spanking, I'm assuming we are mostly working with the butt. But impact play is also very dangerous because you could hit something. So be very careful. Be very, very careful, even with choking. And then another thing that has made it out into mainstream practice is anal play. This is still walking across the stage, but it's getting there. At least it's on the stage. And what I can say about it is, at least that one is, you need a little less care than things like impact play and choking. Now, how do you experience sensuality in BDSM? This is actually one of my favorite topics, and I think it also leads back into postpartum pleasure. If you have an understanding and cooperative partner. Now, one of the least understood aspects of BDSM is something called sensual domination or sensual submission. And what that basically means is that there is still the power dynamic in BDSM where one person is basically giving their power over to the other person. And one of the aspects of sensual BDSM is what has now come to be known as edging, where you deny somebody from getting to orgasm. That is one. Another one is total, complete denial. So you're not even edging them. You're just turning them on without possibly even stimulating their genitals. And I think that would be a nice postpartum way to get into intimacy and sensuality, even as you have not quite gotten to the place where you can get it on in terms of penetration. We're talking heterosexual here. And so you can actually incorporate sensual BDSM, which is like you can actually even create a scene, like a whole scene that is all sensual. So when I was younger, I'm very grateful that motherhood did not slow my roll. But I remember I would have instances where I felt that I needed to experience something different. And so I'd show up for an assignation with a red...
A what?
These days are called dick appointments.
You're not helping. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Just say the word again.
Assignation.
Okay.
Yes. We need to be more classy than these 23-year-olds. Yeah.
Okay, now no family feuds. No fighting. No daughter-mother fights.
Yeah, and so I'd show up with a red bulb and get him to change his light bulb. So I'd show up with a red bulb, and I'd show up with a CD of Maxwell's Embryo, which was then new. And then I'd show up with scented massage oil. What was the other thing? Then, of course, now stuff like lube and so on. And this is 19, 20 years ago. So...
I wish you could record the audience reaction.
So my point is that sensuality is linked to sexuality, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
It's about experiencing things that arouse you.
Yeah.
For some people, it could even be food. Oh, sorry, I forgot. You know, when I count them, for me, taste is my least developed sense. So I'd also show up with Hershey's chocolate sauce. Yes. So...
Lunchtime is going to be fun. Write your questions down. Aki, you should see your faces. I love your faces. Everyone's just like this. We're finishing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so my point is that sensuality can be experienced in its completeness without necessarily going into sex. And I believe that especially for women and men who are wired, quote unquote, like women in terms of sensitivity and things like that, sensuality is one of the best ways to build trust and intimacy. Yes.
And you've answered what was my last segment about intimacy. No, it's okay. No, it's fine. It's a moderator's dream for that to happen. But I was going to ask, how important is intimacy postpartum, and how does that build intimacy without the sexual act, which is what you said? Because after giving birth, or even when you're pregnant, you need constant care. You need love. You need to be touched. You need to be fed. You just need to be loved. Sometimes you just need a hug. You need to cry. And so what you've described sounds like that we do need intimacy pre and postpartum. And there are ways to bring it into the conversation without necessarily taking part in the act, which might, as we discussed earlier, maybe someone is not, the partner doesn't want to have sex, yes? The partner doesn't want to have sex, or the lady has a low libido or a high libido, so that does answer the question. Okay. All right. As you said, we're not perfect on this show, so how does that affect live streaming?
I was going to make a request that we take a small break.
Yeah.
Go get our food because it's 2 p.m.
Yeah.
And then we can come back because seems like an interesting session for everyone. And then we can continue eating while we listen, and the rest of everyone can contribute to the conversation.
Yes. Okay. So, but we were done. We were done.
No, we are not done.
No, I'm saying. Okay. Okay. This is the second hijack. All right. So let's do that. Please give me your questions so that I frame them. So, as are we allowed to eat? Yeah. Give me. Okay, so let's take a break.
So he's saying wrap it up.
Yeah.
People who are on the live stream, then ask us that we have lunch. We'll get lunch.
Okay. Sawa. So I will wrap it up, and I will thank the ladies who have shared of themselves. Faith, I love your story, and I feel that we really didn't get into that because that affects a lot of, especially young women, and actually women who are much older, so that's definitely there for discussion. I love what you said, Jay, about education. Sorry, I'm wrapping up for you, if you've noticed what I'm doing. Very more clearly, you need your own event to run people through, but what I'm getting, and what I even got from your video, is that we can learn from other forms of sexual acts or styles, not necessarily that you have to practice, something. We can learn something from the queer community. We can learn something from everywhere. And I think that is what I loved about your video and what you continue to say. And that's something that Sylvia said in her video, that one, parenting and sexuality, you have to continually learn it. It's not that now that you have given birth and that this is how you used to have sex, and it's cast in stone. So I feel like those are the things that have come out, and I appreciate your time with us. And I think I will release everyone to serve their lunch, and then we can continue this conversation. Yeah? Okay. Are we good? We're off.
Yes.
Please, yeah.
There's just one request.
Yeah.
The rest of us can go serve lunch, but
Yeah.
we request the panelists to stay behind for just a minute to, I promise you'll eat. But we'll just start with, there's no order of tables, so